Guys, welcome to a classic movie review of 1985's The Breakfast Club, starring Emilio Estevez, Judd Nelson, Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald. Now, this was directed by John Hughes, and it's the story of 5 high school students who end up in Saturday morning detention together. Now, they're all wildly different from each other at first glance, but over the course of their classroom incarceration, they'll not only discover how they have more in common than they thought, but they'll also break down their own stereotypes and reveal some of their deepest, darkest secrets. Fret not though, this is still one of the greatest comedies of the 1980s, capturing a handful of teen stars at the apex of their careers, all coated, of course, in an awesome soundtrack. The Breakfast Club is one of the great teen coming-of-age comedy dramas of the 80s or any decade. So let's take a look.
It is now 7:06. You have exactly 8 hours and 54 minutes to think about why you're here, to ponder the error of your ways.
The 80s teen movie, what a genre this is, providing us with such gems as Ferris Bueller, 16 Candles, Say Anything, even Stand By Me, even Weird Science and Back to the Future, and many, many more. But I feel it was this film, arriving slap bang in the middle of the decade, that stands out the most. And yeah, that may be because of how cliched it is to a point. I don't think it makes any apologies for that, because the pivotal aspect of the plot is that it throws together a representative from each of the high school social brackets. We get the princess, the jock, the nerd, the criminal, and the basket case. The group consists of Claire Standish, played by Molly Ringwald, the privileged princess, Brian Johnson, played by Anthony Michael Hall, he's the awkward nerd, Andrew Clark, played by Emilio Estevez, who's the jock, John Bender, played by Judd Nelson, who's the rebellious criminal, and Alison Reynolds, played by Ali Sheedy, the basket case. Probably hasn't aged well, that one. Anyway, the film takes place almost entirely in the confines of the fictional Shermer High School library on a Saturday morning, and these 5 students are sentenced to detention by the authoritarian principal, Richard Vernon, played by Paul Gleason, who is always at his best when playing an arsehole. Now, as part of their punishment, he gives them a simple assignment to write an essay on who they think they are. Now, of course, each of these students comes from a different social group, and this leads to immediate awkwardness and tension as they sit together for the next 8 hours. And as the day unfolds, each one of them will reveal their personal struggles, insecurities and misunderstandings about each other. And it's clear from the outset that each of these guys and gals is more than their label. Judd Nelson's Bender, the rebellious delinquent, is shown to be a product of a broken home, a guy who endures verbal abuse from his father. Molly Ringwald's Claire, the popular girl, reveals her insecurities about living up to her family's expectations and the pressure to maintain her image. Emilio Estevez's Andrew, the athlete, feels quite trapped by the weight of his father's expectations and the pressure to be perfect. Anthony Michael Hall's Brian, the straight-A student, faces the suffocating demands of academic success and the fear of failure. And finally, Alison, the quiet and quite strange girl, reveals a deep sense of loneliness and neglect, and pretty much yearns for just some attention. And yeah, basically, the message is that the parents are all responsible for their children's faults, fears and insecurities. Now, any film like this with such a small cast and maybe 1 or 2 locations will live or die by the strength of its acting talent. And thankfully, one of the strongest aspects of The Breakfast Club is the performances of its ensemble cast. Now, each one of these actors brings a perfectly realised depth to each of their specific stereotype. Molly Ringwald here, who was fresh off 16 Candles and about to star in Pretty in Pink, is the perfect fit for Claire. She could play a wealthy, privileged teen in her sleep. And the fact that she was actually 16 at the time makes her a little bit more believable, certainly in comparison to some of the 20-something castmates. That said, the other 16-year-old in the cast, Anthony Michael Hall as Brian Johnson, the overachieving nerd, is a brilliant ball of bumbling, nervous energy. His ultimate breakdown in one of the movie's pivotal scenes is one of the most memorable moments in the whole film. Now, at the time of filming, Emilio Estevez and Ali Sheedy were both 23 years old. Judd Nelson was 25. And it shows. But 20-year-olds playing high school kids is and was nothing new, of course. Estevez and Nelson butt heads here, vying for the alpha male role. Estevez isn't just the stereotypical jock here, I don't think. He gives his character just that bit of depth by showing him to be sympathetic and vulnerable. Now, of course, Ali Sheedy's Alison Reynolds is the most mysterious of the group. Sheedy brings a sense of emo instability to her character. She's an odd and isolated girl, and although she does eventually transform into a more approachable person, I've always been quite disappointed that it arrives via a Grease-style makeover, giving the message that she has to be covered in makeup in order to be accepted. Now, of course, it's Judd Nelson's John Bender who's the movie's wildcard. When we meet his criminal, he's all confrontational and defiant and seemingly uninterested in anyone else. Nelson's performance is filled with quite a sharp wit and sarcasm, and his moments going head to head with Paul Gleason's Principal Vernon are some of my favourites in the movie.
You just bought yourself another Saturday, mister.
Crushed.
You just bought one more right there.
Well, I'm free the Saturday after that. Beyond that, I'm gonna have to check my calendar.
Good! Because it's going to be filled. We'll keep going. You want another one?
Now, I've never personally been in an 8-hour Saturday detention, but one of the things the film does well here is highlight how laborious it is and how slowly the time moves. And that's not to say that the film feels slow, because what we also get are these extracurricular activities and escapades the group get involved in, such as a game of hallway cat and mouse when the group take a trip to Judd Nelson's locker to retrieve some illegal substances, or when they access the music system and the film becomes a mini musical of sorts. Now, if you're of a certain age, then writer-director John Hughes will have had a huge impact on your movie viewing education, whether it's this film, Ferris Bueller, Planes, Trains and Automobiles. He wrote National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and Home Alone. Now, I don't think it's too hyperbolic to say that he recreated a landmark film in American cinema, one of the quintessential coming-of-age stories, well observed and as touching as it is hilarious. Now, I do also love that the film also critiques authority figures. Principal Vernon here is portrayed as out of touch with his students. His attitude is rigid and judgmental, but it does help bring these guys and girls closer together. We don't get to spend too much time with the parents that are also referenced throughout the film. So he's the closest thing that we have that represents that overbearing adult aspect of the movie. Paul Gleason's great though, and his character unwittingly provides a good chunk of the comic relief of The Breakfast Club. Now, of course, you can't mention The Breakfast Club without talking about the music, which is great across the board, but of course features the Simple Minds track, Don't You Forget About Me, which is one of the tunes of the 1980s, and another reason that The Breakfast Club endures as a beloved classic and an essential part of the teen movie genre. Now, this could have just been a simple detention story, but instead it's a little snapshot of the sometimes messy, sometimes painful, but sometimes hilarious process of growing up. Now, there's many a movie probably that feature the jock, the nerd, the princess stereotypes that most viewers can identify with, or at least recognise from their own experiences in school, but very few that deconstruct them and actually bother to explore the people beneath those labels. By the end of the movie, you genuinely want to know what happens next to each of these students after their bittersweet parting of ways. Now, part of the genius, of course, is that you don't. The Monday morning after remaining a mystery still 40 years later. Go check it out.
Maybe you'll even decide whether or not you care to return.
Yeah, I can answer that right now, sir. That'd be no for me, because...
Sit down, Johnson.
Thank you, sir.